I used to find it extremely difficult to finish music. And honestly, some days in the studio, I still do. But over the years, I've pinpointed a lot of the main reasons why I and many other producers have trouble finishing music. I want to share with you what these reasons are and also give you some strategies to help you move past those blocks and finish the tracks that are sitting on your hard drive. So in the present era, with all these tools and resources we have, we should be able to finish music very quickly, right? We have access to tons of free educational platforms, all of these plugins that are gonna fix this thing, fix that thing, inspire you. And yet, a lot of people find themselves stuck still. All of this leads to option paralysis. When you have so many different options, so many different plugins and tools and directions you can go with it and sample packs, which one do you use? It's important to remember here that creativity thrives under constraints. If you limit your tools, you're going to move faster. Years ago, when I was first dealing with Ableton, I found myself just so overwhelmed by all the different options. The way that I broke through this was through imposing constraints on my creative process. One example of that would be I would use only a single sample pack and try to make every part of the song out of that one sample pack. Or I'd use only one synth. Maybe it's a synth that I just recently got and I don't really know it all that well. Well, this would be a really good way to both familiarize myself with that synth and provide a creative constraint that helped me to move past some of the, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I reach? Type vibes that I was feeling and move on with the writing process. Some other constraints you can place on yourself are time constraints. If you just feel like you have all the time in the world, then you're gonna putz around and try this and try that. But if you're like, all right, this song has to be done in 2 hours, and you break that time up and say, all right, intro, 20 minutes, melodies, 15 minutes, and you wanna stick to that schedule, then you have to move on. That can be extremely helpful for saying, okay, just put it down, deal with it later, make the tweaks and everything to polish it up at some future point. If you're finding this information useful, head on over to the EDMProd website. Over there are a lot of free resources. One in particular gives you 7 ways to increase your musical output. It's very, very helpful if you're struggling to finish music. Highly recommend you go and check that out. Another reason I find it very difficult to finish music is that I might not have any deadlines. If I have a deadline, that deadline's getting met. A label could come to me and say, hey, we need this song in 2 days or it's not getting released. That song's getting done in 2 days, one way or another. But if I don't have any of these deadlines, then usually things just aren't going to get done. Without that finish line, the project just stretches indefinitely. So without some external force working on you to push you forward, you're going to have to create these deadlines yourself. Tell yourself something like, I'm going to finish this track by the end of the week, or I can't go to the movies with my friends, or I can't buy that game that I wanted, or I can't go to see that artist play that I really love. If you're very strict with yourself, this can be an effective way to push yourself and say, I need to get it done, or I can't go have fun. Something else I've also done in the past is I will make bets with my friends. I will say, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to give you some amount of money if I don't finish this song in a week. And I want you to demand that money. And I'm going to make it some amount of money that means something to me, right? I'm not going to make it like, oh, I'll give you $1 or I'll give you $5. I might make it like, oh, I'm going to give you 50 or 100 or $500, whatever amount you think would push you, be like, I don't want to give my friend $100, then that's going to push you forward. Something else that can help to create some external pressure, some real world deadline feel is collaboration. When there's another person that's depending on you holding up your end of the deal and working on a track, that can be a very effective driving force to get you to work towards the finish line. So if you've never collaborated before and you're finding yourself having trouble finishing a song, maybe reach out to a friend and say, hey, you want to hop on this with me? You want to work on this? Let's finish it together. That extra little bit of insight may A, take the song in a direction that you didn't really think about, and B, get you both to finish the music. The third thing that holds me back and many other producers from finishing music is perfectionistic tendencies. We, of course, want our music to be the best it possibly can be. We would love to produce perfect music, but there's no such thing as a perfect song. There never has been, and there never will be. Music production is a game of quality through quantity. There's a story I've heard over and over again about a pottery teacher who ran a bit of like a test with their students. And what they did was they said, okay, this half of the class, you're going to spend the entire quarter working on creating one single pot, and it's going to be the best pot you can possibly create. This other half of the class, you're just going to try and make as many as you possibly can. And at the end, we're going to see which one is best. Probably not too much of a surprise given what we're talking about, but the pot that was created by the second half of the class that was just trying to churn out as many as they could ended up being significantly better than the pot from the class that spent the whole quarter perfecting just one. Music is like this as well. Done is always going to be better than perfect. Think of each song like a journal entry, rather than an end-all, be-all to your music career and total representative piece of art for who you are as a person. That's not what it is. It's a journal entry showing who you were at this time, what kind of music you made, where you were at in the journey. A piece of music that is finished is always going to teach you more than a perfect, unfinished piece of music. Now, the fourth reason that I used to find myself getting stuck all the time, but I've pretty much thoroughly nipped this one in the bud at this point, and that is the inability to break out of a loop. The 8-bar loop is an unfinished song's comfort zone. I hear from tons of producers who say, oh, I just get stuck in this loop and I can't break out of it. There's not a whole lot to this except to do it. And when I say do it, what I mean is take that loop, duplicate the whole thing 3 times. So now you've taken like an 8-bar loop and turn it into a 32-bar section. What do we do next? We start turning tracks off. We start making changes between each section. That first time you duplicated it, take the lead synth up an octave. The second time you duplicated it, maybe turn the lead synth off and let something else take charge. Let something else come to the forefront. All of a sudden, you now have a drop structure arrangement. You now have a chorus arrangement. The last reason that I find myself getting stuck is that I'm not using reference tracks enough. And I'm not talking about reference tracks as they pertain to mixing. This is a whole different thing. What I'm talking about is using a reference as more of a grounding factor, a check-in point, and a structure that you can build off of. What I usually do when I'm starting a track is I'll grab another piece of music that I really love, drag it into my DAW, and then start mapping out where the intro, the build, the drop, the breakdown, all of these things are. And then I will also usually go in there and using MIDI clips map out where all the kicks are, where all the snares. Maybe I'll say, okay, so like there's a bass here and that's got like a response bass. So we got call bass, response bass, call bass, second response bass. And I'm not copying what they have. I'm just saying there is some sound here that's going like bump, 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 wop, bop. Bump, 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 right? That's that ABAC song structure. And I try and figure out all of those based on a track that I know it works with. Once I've got that down, the arrangement and some of the components of a track, I usually will mute or delete the original track, but sometimes it's a good idea to leave it there. Because when you get stuck, you can refer back to the other track and say like, well, what are they doing that made this work? And then you might open it up and realize, oh man, like their build is a lot more energetic than mine. What do they have going on in their build that's different than mine? Now, be very careful. You don't want to continually refer back to that track because it can maybe color the composition process and make it feel like you're copying that music. You're just trying to use this track to recalibrate yourself and ground yourself. So there it is, 5 reasons why you're not finishing music, along with a bunch of strategies that will hopefully help you to break out of that and get to the finish line much faster.